Oh, hey,
Hello.
it didn't go. I'm going to try again.
Go. All right, let's try that one more time.
Oh.
All right.
I'm looking at the levels, and that was really loud.
That was very loud.
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that, you guys. That was you. We asked at the beginning of the show, when we first started, to send in your cheers for us, and we put them all together, and we love it. That's going to be on the show now.
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome to Season 2. I'm Vila Bianca.
I'm Eric Murphy.
This is Skeptic Generation.
And we need to talk.
All right. Season 2. Lots of things going on right about now.
Yeah. It has been really, really good. I know that it's been only a week since you've seen us, but we have done a week-long... how do you want to put it? Like a boot camp, really.
Yeah, it was super fun, but we've done a lot of different stuff, which is super cool. If you saw the new intro, that's one of the things that we worked on. I love it. I've watched it way too many times.
Oh, no. Rick in the comments says, RIP eardrums. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
sorry about that. Speaking of, it's a little bit tinny if you want to play around with the volume. So new stuff. I can't hear myself now. I mean, like the levels.
Oh, got it.
So new stuff. Clearly audio is still something that's a little up in the air, but we're getting to that in a minute. So first, if you saw our Patreon post, which is public, we now have new merch. We also have that linked in the description. We also have that, if you look, at the bottom of the screen, because we have switched over to Spring, which means that we've integrated it into YouTube. You can buy merch from our YouTube page now, class of 2022. So we're super excited about that, and we would love you guys to go check that out. There's a merch.
Yes, there is. Apologize.
Thingy. So we are doing a January sale. So for this month, you get $2 off everything because it's season 2 and it's 2022. So the month of 2, go check that out and save some money.
Yeah.
We're also doing some new stuff. If you were here last week, we kind of teased it. We are doing a new show every so often. It's not going to be weekly, but it will be probably, hopefully once a month. We're doing a versus, which means that Eric and I are going head to head about topics. This first one is going to be about consciousness, but it's going to be a call-in show as well. We're going to be doing most of the debating, most of the talking, but if you guys have thoughts, you will be able to call in using the same number as here, 585-526-8774, and call in and tell us who's wrong, who's right, what you think, and all that good stuff. So we're excited about that. That live stream is going to be popping up once this show is over. And then a couple other things. We are now officially at our patron hang month. So every other month we do a $25 patron hangout on Discord, just very exclusive. Only patrons giving us $25 are invited there. And then we're also doing our Dean's List one-on-one patron conversations this month as well. So if you are a Dean's List patron, keep an eye out for a DM. We will make sure to schedule a time with you to catch up and talk.
I fixed the audio.
It sounds a lot better now.
Yay.
Thank you. It's also very loud now.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Eric, let's talk about our goals for 2022, because we have a lot of goals and one big one.
Yeah, and just so y'all know, we have a ton of callers on the line, so be prepared. It's going to be a killer episode. A lot happened. I mean, we did a whole not a boot camp. It was like a retreat, a Skeptic retreat at home.
Those are two very different words. But
so goals, as far as goals are concerned, we really, really want to get a producer. We want to be able to focus on doing the show while somebody else can do the typing, so you don't hear the click-clacking of the keyboard.
We're also getting a new keyboard in the meantime, so say goodbye to the clack-clack.
Yes, and that was from the wonderful donation. Like, people have been fantastic.
Yes, if you helped us by sending us Amazon gift cards, there are a couple people who have been amazing this last week, and we're using that to buy a new keyboard that is going to be quiet and optimized for recording and all that good stuff. If you're interested in helping us with these goals, They are going to cost a little bit because before we can get a producer, we need a second computer to have that producer
sit at
and use. And we're going to need to be building that ourselves.
Yeah, and I've pieced everything out. Everything that's available to get on Amazon is on Amazon. So we're anticipating that it's going to take us the better part of a year, but we really are going to be fundraising for it. And so we've got fundraising in mind when it comes to Versus, and everything that we earn in Versus is going to be going towards that computer and producer. So
all the computer parts are also on the Amazon wish list. So if you're like, I don't want to wait for a producer to see the new set, you wanted to get here a little sooner, feel free to go in and just grab a random piece of the computer. Eric has helpfully marked out what they all do and how they're useful. So I know that if I looked at that list, I would not know, what this box did and this box did. So we tried to make that a little bit more helpful.
Definitely did my best. But as always, we've been talking about it and talking around it, but we want to thank you. We're so grateful to be in season 2, and we're so excited to bring creative vision that we have, that we want to make happen, and we're ready and wanting to just explore as much as we can. And it is thanks to your support. The show is brought to you by you. If you like what we do, or you just want to get a free version of the podcast, or not free version, obviously everything's free. We bring the show to you free, but an ad-free version of the podcast, or an ad-free version of this video, this show, you can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. The Amazon wishlist, tiny.cc/SG wishlist. And if you just want to shoot us a coffee, tiny.cc/tipsg.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now we've shilled a lot. Anything else before we dive in?
I just want to validate everybody. You are not going mad. This is the biggest mug that I could find.
I'm so excited about it.
I am very excited about this mug. It is now the thing that I love more than anything else in the world, apart from this guy. All right.
Love you too.
Let's jump into calls.
Okay, who are we talking to first?
All right, let's talk to Ian in the UK. Ian is asking about skepticism and whether or not we should apply that to things like who built the pyramids. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
So I am so pleased to be the first caller on the first show of the second series.
Beautiful.
I've sort of gravitated towards your show recently. I really like the style, I like the way that you complement each other. Please, Eric, don't take this the wrong way. I think I relate to V's style a little bit more than I do yours. That's
totally okay. You know, what's funny is we get feedback from people who say that, I really don't like Eric's this or that, his tone of voice or whatever. I just want you to find those people that you resonate with, that you feel like you can build a community with, that are beneficial to you. I do not need to be that person. I just want you to find that person.
And it's me. Hi, yeah. Ian. Okay, so let's dive in. You are calling about something interesting, which is the construction of the pyramids. I'm really curious.
It is, but let me just take a step back from that. I really want to say about when is it reasonable to be skeptical about scientific consensus. I know we've seen a lot of this last year with people being skeptical. Well, they say they're skeptical, but they're dismissive of science, and yet they're not applying real skepticism to the process or to what they believe. So if we take So we will talk about the pyramids, but back in late 60s, early 70s, and I apologise, that's a long time ago, I was given a book to read for Christmas, which I think was called Chariots of the Gods by Tor Eidal. The premise of that book was that the construction of things like the pyramids and other things like in Peru and various other places was not possible by the technology that we attribute to the people at that time.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, he went a bit far, and he started saying, "Oh, it's because of aliens came down and things like that." So that's going too far.
Okay.
But the basic premise, I think, is reasonable. I think it is reasonable to be skeptical about what we're told about, specifically about the pyramids. Also about the Peruvian megastructures. I've been to Peru. I've seen some of these firsthand, and they are absolutely amazing if you ever get the chance to see them.
I mean, it's definitely on a bucket list. But I'm curious why, like, what about the pyramids? What about these structures specifically are intriguing to you and make you want to ask this question?
I think there are many points I could raise. Let me take what's possibly the best one, I think. So there were a number of pyramids built over a short period of time, and I think there are about 5 pyramids, including the main pyramid. And I think if you look at the scientific consensus, it was over about 80 years, I believe. I may be wrong on that. I need to just check up on all the figures. But one of the pyramids that was built, I can't remember the name of the pharaoh they attributed to, but he built 3 pyramids. He built the Step Pyramid, which is characterized by, goes up at quite a steep angle and then it sort of levels out a bit. Now, when they excavated that pyramid, there were a lot of passages underneath in which they found many tens of thousands, I think the latest figure is about 40,000 stone vases. Okay. Now, these vases were made out of very hard rock, granites and things, and even carborundum, which actually is only one level down from being as hard as diamond. Okay. And yet these were built. I've been to the British Museum in London and seen these, and they attribute them to this period of when I think it was like 2,600 or 2,500 years ago. 2,500 BC. And alongside them, they show the tools that they purport were used to construct them. And these tools are basically copper chisels and stone mallets. Okay. So, I mean, I'm following, and I want to make sure we're moving this along. I have some questions just around. I think there are questions to me about it's reasonable to look at a commonly understood historical story and look at it and be like, okay, maybe this happened in a different way. Maybe this is more mythology than actual history, right? All of these historical stories that we have do pass through many, many different interpretations, and the way that people back then wrote history was infused with mythology. So, like, on that level, I absolutely agree that we should be able to question these things. My question is saying, okay, well, maybe they had technology we didn't know about, or maybe another country that did have that technology helped them. Those are all reasonable assumptions to make, but usually when people talk about the pyramids and how it's impossible for the people who lived there to build them, they kind of go to the whole, like, alien thing, and I just want to get there if that's where we're going, or if we're not going there, I want to know so I'm not thinking that you're going to come out here with aliens. We're not going there. Okay, we're not going there. That's good. No way, no. So what I'm saying really is that there's evidence to say that they could not have done this. I'm not trying to say or inject anything in there by saying who it was that did them, just that the story was being given by the archaeologists and the anthropologists, I don't think can be correct. Okay.
So I may I, because I know that you guys were talking, but I'd like to.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Hey, Ian. Hi. Hey, so I was actually thinking about this the other day, so I'm really excited that you called. First off, is it that unbelievable that people did it? You started this conversation by saying it was impossible. How do you know that it's impossible? Because that is actually a pretty intense claim.
All right. I accept impossible as being 100% about something. Sure. Saying no, they could not have done that. Excuse me.
No worries. Are you aware that archaeologists and engineers have, through intense investigation, discovered how they were put together?
I know they claim they do.
Okay.
I've seen, for example, there's evidence of machining on some of the blocks around the pyramid. And these are hard stone, they're granite stone, for example. There are evidence of what look like saw marks. There's evidence of what look like boreholes. Now, I know there have been some scientists who have said, right, we can do this with a copper tube and ground, and we can stand here and we can rotate this and produce the same or similar effects that they can that we've seen.
So I guess, first off, so you're not talking about the height of the pyramid. You're not talking about...
No.
You're just talking about the shape of the stones.
I'm saying about the materials largely.
Okay, so...
There are, for example, there are huge granite blocks.
Yeah.
And they are finished to a high level of accuracy.
Right. And
in terms of flatness, in terms of mirror finish and so on.
Right. So I guess the question then is, are you just as skeptical of Greek and Roman buildings as well? Huge, like, think about the technology that they had then versus Greece and Rome, right? I mean, nobody's looking at the Parthenon and going, oh, that people could not have done that. What was different? Because
I'm not sure they are looking at that.
I just, the other one I want to bring up is, what tools were available to the sculptors who made some of the most beautiful marble and stone, statues that we've seen. Now we know they were made by people. We've seen it. We have artisans who can still do it. And so the idea that it's impossible is interesting to me. And just so you know, people who are watching, we are hoping the clipping will go away. This kind of thing happens when the streaming software and YouTube, when there's something going on. We've done everything on our end, and we're hoping that it's going to adjust. Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, I'm not aware there's any sound issues.
Yeah.
So taking your point, there are so look at the statue of David, for example, which is made in marble, and it's really a fantastic piece of work. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was done more recently than we're talking about here. Marble is a softer stone than things like granite and some of the stone that they're using on the pyramids.
Okay.
The issue I have is, if you look at some of the stones on the inner chambers of the pyramid, take the Great Pyramid, for example, there are massive granite stones on there. Yeah. Now, talking about those, I can't remember offhand what the weight of these things are, but they're massive. They're very closely knit together. They're very closely finished. And yet we are told mm-hmm. by the archaeologists, they made these using copper tools and I think they call andesite. I might be wrong.
Okay. Can I jump in here real fast? I'm sorry, Ian. I know that you've got more points to make. I'm less interested, and we have to kind of keep this moving along. I'm less interested in the actual specifics of this argument, and I'm more interested in why you're making this argument in the first place, because I know that there are people who are skeptics about all things just because that's the way that their minds work and that's how they like to view the world. I do take a more pragmatic approach, I think, in terms of, why am I being skeptical about this? Why am I spending my time, my finite amount of time, asking this particular question about this thing? And my question for you is, even if we were to grant that things don't seem to line up, which I can't because I haven't done that research, I can't weigh in on that, what value is it to you to be skeptical about who built the pyramids?
I think it's important that we don't dismiss what might be seen as fringe theories. because they don't happen to match the scientific consensus. Let me give you.
Actually, that's a wonderful direction.
Yeah.
So Ian, the statement that you just made, is it acceptable to accept a fringe theory because you don't think that there's enough evidence elsewhere? What is it about it? Because if someone gives me a fringe theory, I'm going to look for evidence for the fringe theory. If I ask about something and they tell me, oh, well, I don't like what the other side has to give, that does not provide evidence for a fringe theory. And so when you point at this and say, well, you don't accept the reasoning that professionals have given to give their best estimate of how it was made, that doesn't actually provide support for anything else other than you just being skeptical of that one claim. And so if your question is, should we be giving fringe theories time? It depends on how much evidence there is for those fringe theories. And if there's not evidence for them, then no.
Right. The lack of evidence in one direction does not constitute positive evidence in another direction. So the difference between being skeptical about consensus, which is what you're calling it about, and accepting fringe theories, which is also what you're calling it about, the difference between those two things is one of them is saying, I don't see enough evidence for this claim that you are making. In fact, some things that I've done research on seem to contradict it. So I'm going to keep looking for answers, or I'm just going to reserve judgment if that's not where I want to put my time and energy. Accepting a fringe theory is an entirely different set of criteria, right? Because you then go on to say, this scientific consensus is not accurate, therefore this other thing must have happened. And this other thing, the problem with a lot of them, not all of them, but with a lot of those fringe theories is that they are actually less believable than other alternatives, right? The options are not, as you know, either the pyramids were constructed exactly the way we think they are, or aliens did it. Right? There's a plethora of options in there. And so in order to be convinced by a fringe theory, what the person presenting it would have to do is actually convince me that it is the only other option and more likely than the one that has the consensus. Yeah. Right? So yeah, that's kind of the difference between the two. I'm curious what you think.
There's a lot there, V. Let me try and unpick that a little bit.
Yeah.
The last one you said, which is, try to prove that there is evidence for this fringe theory, I think was the way you I can't remember exactly how you stated it. Let me give an example from more recently. I'm talking about the 1980s. You may or may, I won't say that. Basically, there was consensus. There was some study done by two Australian doctors in the late 80s, I think, no, the early 80s. Which basically they believed that stomach ulcers were caused by bacteria. And they could not get any of the rest of the medical profession to believe them. They were treated as if they were a fringe theory.
Right.
What one of the doctors did, because they couldn't get agreement to do human trials,
right,
he infected himself with the bacteria that they found in many of these patients who had stomach ulcers with the bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. And very quickly, he developed ulcers. They then found that by taking antibiotics, the stomach ulcers cleared up. But it was very much a fringe theory. It took the medical profession probably about 12 years before they actually acknowledged this.
Right, right. And that would be a really good example of somebody actually proving that fringe theory to be the case, right? And even if it takes a while to catch on, if that proof is there, if that evidence is there and available, then eventually, I hope, we will move towards that as a society. But that's not necessarily my concern here. My concern is that is a really good example of when a fringe theory turned out to be correct because there was documented evidence of it being correct.
Can I just throw something in here really quick for linguistic purposes? I would say that a hypothesis that needs to be tested is a hypothesis until it is proven or disproven. If it is proven to be true, then you can take that hypothesis and say, here's our working understanding. If you take that hypothesis and you are either unable to test it, or you have, reasoned your way out of accepting the reality that it was proven false, then you have a fringe theory. Mm-hmm. So your example is a hypothesis. It took the mainstream longer to accept it, but to call it a fringe theory, I want to break that difference, because there are fringe theories that have been tested or are untestable,
right?
And people still hold on to them, and so I don't want to conflate those.
Right. That's a good clarification. Fringe theory does feel kind of like loaded as a loaded term. If we talk about this in terms of hypotheses, that's how science progresses, right? That's how our understanding of the world progresses. We listen to people's hypotheses, and then we test them. And if they fail those tests, then we discard them. Or if they are not testable, then we ignore them until they can be tested. So I'm intrigued and confused by your examples, because it feels like you're trying to lead us down a path to your ultimate point. And I really, really just want to know what that point is. Like, why, what is this connection between the pyramids and ulcers for you that are, I feel like we've got the bedrock of your point, but we haven't gotten to why you're making this argument.
I think that you're right. It's probably not right to call it fringe theory. I will get to the point, but let me just say that it's quite often we have a theory. So, for example, we had Newton's theory of gravity that worked largely. We found it didn't work in certain cases, and that led us to believe that there was more to it than we knew, and that eventually led to Einstein's theory. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that we can have a scientific consensus, and things can be pointed out that are wrong with it,
right?
Without actually saying what the theory. There's no theory or there's no hypothesis being made at that stage. We're just pointing out there is something wrong with what we're being told and what the general consensus is, and that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm saying there's something wrong with the story, the scientific consensus that says that the pyramids were made by the first dynastic Egyptians. I've been to Peru and I've seen some of the things there, and then there's, I don't believe, frankly, that they were built by the people who they're being attributed to. So I'm pointing out errors in the current scientific consensus. And this is why I'm phoning in really to say, look, is it reasonable to be skeptical about these things by pointing out the things that are wrong with it? No. I'm not going to go down to say aliens did or fringe theories. I'm saying, but there might be another explanation that we need to try and investigate. But it seems like the scientific consensus is shutting down any discussion along those ways.
You know what? I think we're getting closer to this point, and we are going to have to wrap this call up. But Ian, I think that the piece here that we're missing is, yes, there are definitely going to be times where the scientific community shuts down a line of inquiry because the people who are making those decisions and those claims are not qualified. So the other component here that we need to be thinking about when proposing alternate explanations or calling into question the validity of a thing is it more likely that everybody is wrong, which could be the case, or that I don't know as much as people who are experts in this field, right? And so we're seeing this a lot with what's going on now with the plague that is happening, right? We've got people who are not scientists, who are not epidemiologists, who are not doctors, saying, well, this doesn't add up because what about this thing? And the reason that a lot of that gets shut down is not because we don't want to admit that there's a mistake, although that could be the case sometimes. I'm not saying that's impossible. The reason it's being shut down is because the people who know what they're talking about know that's not actually an issue, and paying attention to it is only going to do more harm than good. So I think the other component that we need to talk about here next time, if you would like to call back, is, do we have the knowledge ourselves to decide when something doesn't add up?
Can I just quickly address that? I agree with what you're saying, and I see that how this happen. However, I would say that archaeologists are not engineers. Archaeologists look at the stones being how they've been produced, and they have their theories, but they don't test them properly. And yet, if you take, and engineers have actually looked at these things, artists who carve stone for a living have looked at these things and said, this is not possible with the tools that they are supposed to have used.
Maybe we're looking at different documentaries, because I study a lot of archaeology with my day job. I'm not an archaeologist, but I do a lot of research on archaeologists, and the idea that they don't bring in experts makes zero sense to me, because that's what I see in that, that kind of stuff being used in the field. People sticking to their lane is really damn important, but also experts have looked and come to the opposite conclusion. They've gone, okay, this is how we believe it was done. But
also, I do want to point out that you're right, that archaeology is not science in the way that we talk about it when we talk about things like medicine or biology. So using but the problem here is that you brought archaeology as an example and then broaden that to scientific consensus, right? So we're both in this space of equivocating with that, and I agree that that's probably a thing we should tease out a little bit more to be more accurate. But I think we need to wrap this call up, Ian. We do have a lot of callers on the line.
Holy crap, it's been over a half hour, yeah.
All right.
What I'll do is, I think you're on Discord afterwards, is that right?
We are on Discord afterwards.
We're going to do an after show.
I can certainly put some of the links to various places I've looked at.
Yeah, please do.
And
scientific papers and so on afterwards. I can do that.
And check out Holy Kool-Aid. He's put out a lot, and I've helped.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
Were you questioning whether or not archaeology is science? I don't know whether it is or not.
That's another conversation. Thanks so much for calling in, Ian.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. This conflation of scientific consensus and science. Practicing good science is trying your best to disprove whatever's going on, because you want to know if something is wrong. And if you want to see science at work, you find people who go, hey, what if it could be X or Y or Z, and they test for it. Somebody in the comments says, science does not actually prove things. Not always, but it can predict. And so if you are looking for a likely, if you're looking to find evidence for a hypothesis, if that hypothesis has predictive power and you check it out and it works, that is definitely evidence in favor of the hypothesis that you're putting forward. And so when I say prove, I think that I was colloquially meaning it, but if you think, I totally understand, I'm okay with pedantry. But yeah, just this idea of scientific consensus being conflated with science, because science is what should ultimately, drive that consensus, and it should be open to, shifting if new evidence becomes available, but not until then. And also, a hypothesis is not a conspiracy fringe theory. That if people are ignoring evidence and they are trying to explain away why their explanation isn't working out, that's no longer a hypothesis. That's a fringe conspiracy theory, and it does not belong in the same category. Yeah. Anyway.
Let's talk with Joseph in Kansas. Joseph is a theist who has questions about free will and lack of agency, which sounds very interesting. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Hi, V. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hello. What's your question for us today?
I guess I just wanted kind of to get your opinion. I called in maybe a month or two ago with a vaguely similar question.
Okay.
And during that conversation, Eric brought up that, if tomorrow someone was able to 100% prove that free will doesn't exist and we're all just, meat robots, then it probably wouldn't really affect your day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which I'm prone to agree with. But I guess when I very first sort of discovered some of the more, philosophical and deeper conversations regarding free will, I feel like, and maybe this is just the barrier of language because, you can only talk about free will in certain ways. Sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. You couldn't help it. Go for it.
I guess it's just the barrier of language that makes, when people talk about not having free will, it makes me think, no one has ever made a choice ever in their entire lives ever, and not just for the more mundane things. Like if I'm having a conversation about free will with someone and the person I'm having the conversation with is saying we don't have free will, then I'm not personally offended, but the thing that comes to mind for me is my dad passed away a few years ago, and at his funeral, it was a hot day at his funeral, and I wore a heavy wool sports jacket to his funeral because I was one of his pallbearers, and that was a birthday present that he had given me several years prior.
Aww.
And
Joseph, we're sorry to hear that, by the way.
And I decided, that morning, it's really hot, but I don't care. I'm going to wear this heavy wool jacket because it's one of my favorite gifts that my dad has ever given me. And when you talk about free will and not having free will, it almost seems like, did you really make that choice though?
Well,
you know what I mean?
So I guess the question is, does it matter? Let's say that you have the illusion of free will. If it's an illusion, does that really change it? My first thought of it is, let's say you made a lot of little tiny robots and you put them in a pen together, and these, gosh, I keep putting things in pens in my examples lately, but yeah, you got
babies, robots.
Yeah. So you got your little pen of meat robots, and they're all functioning just fine, but one of them is going around destroying the others. Do you allow it because it didn't have the free will, or do you go, I should isolate this thing? This thing should not belong in the pen, right? So I start with something really basic like that, and then see how far it moves out before it starts getting really weird, and then I challenge my assumptions. And so,
sure,
if we were to go, okay, does it matter if the robot chose to destroy the others or if it was bad programming? Not really. The effect is still the same. And if we were to, let's say we didn't have free will, but we do look for justifications for our own actions after the fact. I think that we often do that, period. It's why did you choose this? I don't know. I guess I chose lemonade because I was thirsty, and lemonade is refreshing. But
sure.
Just because we apply justifications or anything like that, I don't think that it really matters. This idea that that we would be without blame. Do you think that we would be not responsible for our own actions if we didn't have free will?
Not really. I'm not sure. That's a good way to look at it.
Okay.
But just to
finish your point.
To backtrack to what you said is just, sure. I guess your mention of the illusion of free will, that's a matter of, even if it is an illusion, it's an illusion that I'm perfectly comfortable with. Because
go ahead.
It's like the question of hard solipsism. We might all be brains in a vat, but I don't think we are, and even if we are, I'm comfortable with believing that we're not.
So you'd stay plugged into the Matrix, is what you're saying.
I guess, but it's like it's just certain things are more comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, and Joseph, I also want to.
And I suppose that gets into the Matrix is a good comparison because that gets into the whole ignorance is bliss and wouldn't you rather know the truth sort of thing.
Right.
Oh, excuse me, I apologize.
So Joseph, one thing that I would like to point out as well, I want to take this down a slightly different direction. You said, you gave the example of picking out a hot wool sports coat because it was one of the favorite gifts that your dad gave you, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of the time, you're right, we think about free will in this way of, well, did I not have a choice to pick out that jacket as opposed to another one? And it might be more helpful to think about it in this way. Did you have a choice as to which of your father's gifts was your favorite, or which of your blazers in your closet was your favorite? Or was that something that just was?
Yeah, I guess that's, because I suppose you don't really choose which one your favorite is. It just is.
Exactly. So what if we just went one step back? So instead of saying you had no choice but to choose that jacket because something else is moving your arms and your hands, it was you were always going to choose that jacket because that jacket is your favorite. And that is something that you didn't decide or choose, that just kind of was. And the reason that your dad probably got you that jacket had to do with values about whether, the warmth of the clothing or the look of the clothing or what you had said to him before. All of that factored into that decision, right? And all of those things were not choices. So sometimes when we talk about free will, we're not talking about, this hard determinism where everything is robotic. We're more discussing, okay, the decisions that you make are deeply impacted by things you don't have control over, like your preferences or your values or your favorite things. So what about that? Does that feel like it might kind of address that issue without removing the value of it?
Yes, because it was a good way to put it, because I guess that's where conversations about free will tend to, I don't know, just derail a little bit for me because as you said, hard determinism is kind of, it does feel like it sucks all the value out of everything. And I'm not one of the people who believes that, life necessarily has, some greater intrinsic value because God or whatever else gave it intrinsic value. But just to say, but saying the belief of not having free will and full determinism or determinism comes down to, no one's ever made a choice ever in their lives. So inherently nothing has value.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that's actually kind of where I'm struggling myself, because it feels very similar. And Joseph, I don't know if you've had a deconversion or deconstruction experience where you thought about God one way before, and then you kind of came to the conclusion that maybe God is not what you initially thought. But for me, that's how I got to deism. Yeah, exactly. So you said it yourself. You said, well, I don't believe that God gives us all inherent value and that's why life has meaning, but I do put that on free will. And I think that's the next step, right? And that is the same struggle that a lot of people feel when we say God doesn't exist in the way that you think he does, and he is not responsible for meaning or the value of your life. That inherent kind of icky, like, ooh, but it should be, but like God should be the reason, because otherwise what reason would there be, right? There's that instinct, and you and I have both felt that and then gotten past that. So my question is, it could be the same for free will. Doesn't have to be, I don't know. But why would you come up against that and back off instead of push through as you did with your God belief?
I don't know. I don't know. That's I don't know. That's it's just. I'll admit. I haven't gone too far down the rabbit hole regarding a lot of the different beliefs in free will, whether or not it is, determinism and materialism and all the different aspects. I haven't gone too far down that rabbit hole, I'll admit. So I guess it may just be a matter of ignorance, a matter of not having spent the time.
Yeah, and usually it is. Usually it's just I haven't actually read all of the things, and so I can't know yet. And that's a good place to be. That's fine. My only push for you is you know how to do that. You know how to look at a topic,
right,
a big worldview changing topic, and say, the idea that this doesn't exist makes me feel really weird, but I'm going to pursue this anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage you and everybody else watching, even though I don't think we will ever know if we are indeed free or determined to do the things that we do, it should still follow that you're able and willing to look at that topic too, even if it would be world changing, and say, this makes me feel icky, but what if it was true? What would happen then?
Yeah, and as you're going along in your path, it might start feeling a little bit. There might be a little bit of despair there. You said that there's this whole idea of like a lot goes out the window as far as meaning and purpose and that kind of stuff, and value. And I highly suggest that as you're doing this, you also look into different ways that people look at value. Especially, I don't agree with Kant on a lot of things, but viewing people as the givers of value and purpose can help a lot when it comes to that.
Right, and I'm of that belief as well, that since there isn't necessarily an intrinsic value to life, value to the universe, then it has the value that you ascribe to it.
Yeah.
But I guess I still get tangled back into free will in that case, because if free will doesn't exist, then did you really give it value?
Well, not one that is not intrinsic value, no. But if you were to accept that nothing has intrinsic value and all there is to give it is extrinsic value, then yeah, why not? As much as it could,
Yeah, I guess.
Like if there's no free will, but you really like cheeseburgers, does that mean you really like cheeseburgers? Well, you do. Yeah, I guess as much as you can, it gets kind of sticky there, but it's a fun place to play.
Yeah, and that's it. Have fun. Play around in that space and see where it might lead you. It doesn't have to lead you anywhere. There's no moral should here, right? You should just explore this if it's interesting to you. And the only moral, or not even moral, the only thing that I would say as you're doing this is make sure that you're allowing yourself to have that experience and have that fun, and don't back off from it. Yeah. But Joseph, thank you so much for calling in again. This was a great conversation.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
I like him.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know. I feel like I just kind of want to just say over and over again that if you believe that you have free will and you value something and you're worried that that's going to change, I don't believe in free will. And I value you, V, and I value Joseph, the caller we just had. And it's not an exclusively free will thing necessarily. I mean, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need free will to have value in the same way we don't need a God to have value.
Damn straight.
Eric, who would you like to talk to next?
Ooh, let's see. I think I want to talk to... What do you think?
I mean, it's a very niche...
Okay, who do you want to talk to?
I'm actually curious to talk to Wolfos in Texas.
Okay.
Wolfos is looking for advice on talking to a coworker about their flaws in reasoning.
Ooh, and Wolfos, I am creating your lower third graphic right now.
Wolfos, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I have actually relates to the very first caller that you guys had. The conversation you had with him was almost the exact conversation I had with them last night.
Interesting. Okay.
They're evangelicals, and we've had religious conversations before, but we didn't get anywhere. We hit a brick wall. Mm-hmm. But they were willing to listen to me, and they came to the correct conclusions about ancient aliens and time traveling Nazis. We were watching Ancient Aliens, and I was showing them his reasoning and all the resources he was using while he was ignoring all of the reasonable science that was there right in front of him too. Uh-huh. And they were ready, hook, line, and sinker, just follow him down his rabbit hole and just accept it. But I showed them that that's not how you do this. And yeah, they weren't taking in the actual evidence. They were taking in the conspiracy theory side of it. And since he was smiling and nodding the whole time, they were smiling and nodding right along.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out a way to work that toward the way they're thinking about their religion too. I don't want to disrupt their bedrock at all. But they accepted me into their house and were willing to listen and talk. And we spent 4 hours worth of critiquing ancient aliens. But it was something that we could do. And it actually, I think it progressed them forward a little bit. I just didn't know if this is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to go about it. As long as it's understood that these kinds of topics are on the table between you and your coworker, that is a really good way to start, because a lot of the time there's this protective instinct that comes into play when we're talking about like big worldview shifting conversations, very much like our last caller, this concept of, oh, I don't know if I even want to talk about this or if I want to believe this. I would rather just have this belief because it makes me feel good. But that doesn't apply to things they're not as attached to. And so you can start to have these conversations around skepticism and, reasoning and rationality on less fraught ground, and get them involved in that thought process and have them feel good about solving problems and coming up with the right conclusion before you start bringing in, the more intense conversations.
Yeah. Right. Because when I was talking to the husband, he started bringing up a documentary he saw, but he was using. Yeah.
Hey, Wolfos, just really quickly, there's a ton of comments in the live chat that are wondering, are you talking to these coworkers at work?
We discuss before work when they show up to relieve me. I'm a third shifter. They show up bright and early in the morning.
People are like, I don't know if you want to do that at work. So just a
I have zero fear here in Texas, though. Every single one of my customers is very evangelical, but I am still willing to stand my ground right there for 8 hours and have a conversation with them.
Damn, it's nice to have a job that you can do that.
Oh, I'm a clerk at a gas station in the middle of the night.
Okay, well,
so I get. Go ahead.
That sounds like an amazing mini series. Just being the third shifter at a gas station in the middle of the night, talking with people who come in. I had a really good friend who had that job, and we would just stay outside and smoke cigarettes until the sunrise. I have a suggestion, Wolfos. If you haven't done it before, when you're talking to them, try implementing things that you know that they can use elsewhere. So let's say that they engage in a fallacy when they're talking about one of their points. Then especially do it if it's true. If somebody uses, I don't know, an ad hominem, this person is a bad person, therefore they're wrong. Then what you can do is you can say, hey, you know what? I agree with you that this person's wrong about this thing, but the way you structured that actually doesn't work. And so next time we talk, could you find another way to say that does not include an ad hominem? Because if you have to rely on bad reasoning,
then you might need to rethink it. And so each time you talk to them and they do what's another really good one? The
equivocation.
Equivocation fallacy. Sure, absolutely. Hey, you know what? The way you talked about that, the structure of it is equivocation. Here's an example of equivocation, and I know you disagree with it just like I do. So let's find a way to approach this that doesn't use that equivocation. And as they come to you, oh, I still believe in aliens, but I realized that I was, using some bad reasoning. So here's another argument. Then you look at it together. Oh, hey, you know what?
Yeah,
I really, you're bringing it to me in different ways that have, less and less of the bad reasoning pieces that you had at the beginning. And that can help them a lot when they take it with them into every other part of their life.
And you're absolutely correct, because we actually started talking about politics this way the first time, and they've approached me many different ways with their politics now.
Mm-hmm.
And they've used deductive reasoning that they realize many different things about the way that we're voting. And I explained to them, like, you should look into what you're actually voting for.
And if you do come across a point that, especially if you can find where you were wrong, or where you go, hey, I should really look up more evidence. Hey, you know what? I didn't think about it that way. Let me look it up. If you can model that behavior, they are infinitely more likely to reflect that behavior back at you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for doing this, and congratulations on season 2.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yay.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for calling in. It sounds like you're doing, for lack of a better term, the Lord's work.
Oh, God.
Fair enough. I'm hoping to be a regular caller here. You guys
Wonderful.
are pretty great.
All right. Well, we look forward to talking to you again.
Oh.
Well, I just started using Twitter because of you guys.
Nice.
Because
I
of
got back into Twitter. And now I've joined your Discord, and I'm thinking, why not stay up a little bit extra and join you guys on Discord after this, too?
Beautiful.
Well, we'll talk to you then.
All right.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye. That's fun.
Yeah.
I've converted someone into a Twitter user. I like it.
Who are we talking to next?
I would like to talk to Derek in Georgia.
Ooh, all right.
Derek is asking about why people shift from a specific denominational view to like a more unspecific kind of like wishy-washy view, I guess, and how to talk to them about that. Derek, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, just to I understand, maybe that I didn't explain myself to the call screener in a very clear way. It kind of has to do with that. Just to let you know before we continue with the conversation, I got a little bit of a language barrier, so I'm gonna try to explain myself, as best as I can.
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay, so for starters, I'm 51 years old. I ran when I was, younger, back in the 80s and, the 90s. I ran when I was asking somebody, what denomination you belong to. People probably, they were saying, I'm Pentecostal or I am Catholic or JW or whatever. And I noticed, like in the last maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 years that people right now, like, they don't like to talk about, saying, I'm part of this denomination. Now people, they try to avoid that. They got like a different strategy right now. And, when you ask people, to what denomination you belong to? I don't follow denominations. I'm not part of a religion. I am just in a relationship with God.
Yep.
Like they change. Like they are kind of ashamed. Or they know, like, they got so much a skeleton in the closet. Let's say you're a Catholic, the bad rap that they're getting about, child molestation, all this stuff. So they don't want to say that. Or let's say they don't want to say they're Catholic, or the JWs, all these issues with shawning and all these problems that they had, that they lost, probably like half of the members throughout the years. So what I'm looking for is just like a defeating kind of counter argument to destroy that, because I use like different methods when I get into conversations with people, And I haven't found like a defeater. Like I feel like it's like when you're going fishing and this fish, you just try to catch it, but you always get away. And that's how I feel, with these people, that I haven't found like a defeater, counter argument to destroy, because I see, why they're so evasive about this. Why in a matter of years, 20 years, 15, 20 years, they don't want to say, what they are
right
anymore. And I don't, that's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are two different things that I would want to bring up. And then Eric, I'm very curious to hear what you think as well here. So the first thing, this observation that it's moving from I am a Methodist to, I just have a relationship with God. I think if I'm right, this is just my hypothesis, my fringe theory, if you will, that it's becoming less of a given in society that you are going to be a religious person. And so it becomes less about I am this specific subset of religious person, because of course we're all religious, right? To being a little bit more on that defensive side of things, because the assumption is no longer that everybody is religious. And so it becomes a little bit more cagey, because people might feel like, well, if I tell someone I'm religious, I can't count on them understanding that because they're also religious. So I'm just going to be a little less forthcoming with what information I give about myself. So that could be one of the reasons why we're seeing this shift, and I've seen it as well. In terms of having a defeater to this, I actually have a little bit of a problem with the idea of a defeater here. For a couple of reasons. The first reason is I don't think that there is one defeater to every person's faith, right? There is no one magic bullet, no one argument that's going to disprove God belief for each person. Each person comes to their God belief very differently, and especially if there's somebody who calls themselves someone in a relationship with God, then it's going to be a lot more nebulous, and it's going to be a lot more based on their emotions and what God means to them personally. So having one magic bullet for all of these people who have different reasons for believing doesn't really exist, I don't think. But also, that shouldn't really be the goal, I don't think. And I know that a lot of the time it's a lot of fun to have a call with somebody who's a believer, and we have a smackdown, and then we hang up or
drop the mic.
Yeah, like it's fun to watch, and it's fun to engage in sometimes, for sure. But when you're engaging with people who believe something differently than you, it can really help that conversation forward and make it last longer, so you don't just need that one defeater. You get multiple chances to kind of make your point. If you approach it from a place of, I want to understand how you see the world and maybe identify places where I'm wrong, as opposed to, I see that you believe this thing that I think is wrong. I'm gonna beat down on that, So there are a couple different areas there, I think, that we got into. What are your thoughts?
Well, the reason I asked for the defeater was because it's not because I want to defeat them on this new tactic that they have. Because when it comes to talk about different, parts of the conversation where they lead you about, talking about slavery or the Noah's Ark, all this stuff, for all those things, I do have already a defeater, and that's thanks to, me watching your shows and me watching, when you guys used to work on the ACA, volunteer on the ACA, I learned, how to, counteract any of those, arguments that they made. They got no base, no scientific base. But it's just like the only thing that they throw me out of balance is when we touch the part about, what denomination they follow and everything, and they changed. I mean, like, wow. It's amazing, when you live, as long as I've been, it's not like, I'm a really, really, really old person, but you see the change of society from, I am this denomination, that denomination, now they don't want to say it.
But
that's why I find strange.
That's kind of the amazing thing, though, isn't it? I mean, that's why we say you respect the person, you don't necessarily respect the idea, because you give people the opportunity, the chance, and the understanding that they can grow and that they can change. You know, I absolutely agree with V that you got to go step at a time with them. I don't think it's necessarily a tactic that's being employed with a purpose there. I think that anytime you have a group of people that self-identify, just, okay, cool. You know, if somebody says that they're a vegan, are you going to say, no, you're not? I have a defeater for that. No. But if they're going to say, here's my vegan argument, and you want to argue with them about that, sure, great. But if you're talking about the label someone gives the group that they belong to, there's not they're not wrong. If someone says they're a Catholic, you can't go, no, you're wrong. You can say, okay, well, let's talk about what's wrong about your beliefs, you know, or what's wrong about, you know, the Catholic Church or whatever. But if somebody says I'm this denomination or that denomination, they're probably right, you know, at least as far as they're concerned. And, you know, who cares? Let that be the opening statement. Don't let that be something that you feel you need to argue, as much as just understanding it, as much as they have brown hair or that they like strawberry ice cream. You know, it's just cool. You like strawberry ice cream. Let's talk about why you're wrong. You know?
I had kind of a conversation with a good friend of mine, and it didn't end up well. You know, I just was trying to. That conversation ended up. You know what? I understand. You know what you are annoying with me, because the worst nightmare for the Christian is an atheist that read the Bible and understand the Bible, and I didn't like that. But you know, I understand. But hey, you know, I appreciate the information that I got from you guys, and it's very valuable for me. And that's the way I'm gonna handle it from this point on. Like I said, the issue is why they don't want to, you know, say, you know, what denomination are when they used to do that in the past. That's the thing that throw me out of balance. What they make them change to, you know, and I'm not talking about, you know, one particular, you know, people from one particular denomination. In general, they don't want to say it.
I agree.
Doesn't matter where they come from.
It might just be that they're being honest with you. Because over here in Texas, dude, I got to tell you, man, when I first came out here before V, I was getting into two-stepping, learning how to dance, you know.
I put a stop to that real fast.
No, anyway, I would go, but I didn't have a dance partner. And so anytime you go to like an old-timey dance hall out here in Texas, there's a line of little old ladies that are just waiting to dance. You do not need to have a dance partner. You show up, you find a little old lady, you're going to go dance. And so I would go and I would learn to dance with these little old ladies. And inevitably they'd be like, oh, how old are you? Oh, are you single? Oh, yeah, actually I am. Oh, I have the perfect person for you. What church do you go to? You know, they weren't saying they had a personal relationship if I wasn't going to their church. I was honest. I said, I'm actually an atheist. And they went, never mind.
And this dance is over.
So I mean, you know, let's celebrate the fact that there are more of them, and that the people who you're dealing with sound like they're being honest with you and with themselves. But we're not yet ready to say that we've crossed the finish line when it comes to that specific bit. But yeah, no, everybody in the comments is saying, hey, this is the rise of the nuns. You know, this is the rise of more people recognizing that their views don't necessarily line up with their churches. And it doesn't mean that they're ready to ditch their beliefs, but more are willing to separate themselves from the label of that, you know, denomination identity.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they're doing right now that they didn't used to do in the past. And it's funny because it's not like it's coming from one side or the other. I notice in general many people don't want to, you know, say, oh, I'm this or that. And it's amazing, you know, how things evolve simultaneously in that way, you know, because it wasn't like that in the past.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Yeah, I think as a society globally, we're moving into hopefully a place of a little more nuance. So we don't just all have this single identity that we assume everyone else has as well. Derek, thank you for calling in. This was a good conversation.
Yeah, to share all your information. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you guys again. I spoke to you like months ago.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for everything.
Absolutely. Bye.
I like Derek.
Yeah. Derek asks good questions. Somebody says that the clicks are the burn, and Eric and V must go on a quest to the future to stop it. Yes.
I'm in.
A beleaguered Kelpian is responsible for all of this. All right.
Yes.
We've got a couple more calls. I do want to take. Let's take. I know you were interested in Allistair's call.
Yeah, I'm curious because I don't know where we're going with it. Allistair in Canada, it says in the notes. It's interesting. It says in the notes that your audiophile beliefs regarding certain bits of audio tech parallels a lot of religious beliefs. Please tell me how because I'm an audiophile.
Okay.
And so I want to know how that makes me more or less likely, to be, hit me.
Yeah, I should say some audiophiles. Like this goes back mostly to the 80s, I guess.
Okay.
80s and 90s when home audio systems was a really big thing.
Yeah, people had these giant speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are, all these battles between companies and various people. They'd say, okay, my system sounds the best or that sounds the best. And they'll come up with all this new, super expensive equipment. But there's a fringe group, I'd say, that will say, okay, well, the speaker cables make a difference. And basically it's just wires connecting equipment to another. And you have companies that sell, audiophile, quote unquote, cables for hundreds or thousands of dollars. And people would say they could hear a difference between the two.
I know, isn't that weird?
Argument. Yes.
Yeah.
I've had arguments with even with close relatives who say, or one person in particular that claims that it does make a difference, and I could show electrically that there is no difference.
Absolutely.
And there'll be no winning the argument.
And just for people who are wondering what the hell we're talking about, there still are actually companies that will sell basic cables and put a massive upcharge on them. Let's say you're talking about an HDMI cable, and that HDMI cable is connecting from your TV to your cable box. You can buy a crazy expensive HDMI cable, and it still does the same thing. There have been tests that determine whether or not these really expensive cables do better than these really poor, or much cheaper or more reasonable cables. You can get ones that are sturdier, sure. You can get ones that aren't going to, bend. They're more likely to be shielded, but you're not getting better video or audio quality. So
correct.
Interesting. Yeah. And the other thing is when people think that they spent a lot of money on a quality thing, then you do have that placebo.
Call it confirmation bias.
Well, and not just confirmation bias, but it's kind of a placebo effect, because I'm not going to say that their experiences, that they're lying about their experience, right? If I gave you sugar pills and told you that they were going to cure your headache, odds are, if you believed me, that placebo would help. And it's an amazing thing. And so I think that playing into that placebo is also partially it. But I know that we've kind of gone far afield of probably what you wanted to talk about. So go ahead.
No, not really. Yeah, well, I've seen the company selling literal, almost blocks of wood, where you could put your speaker cables on these to raise it off the floor to improve the sound that way. So I'm thinking, would it be unethical if I were to sell this into people that are, I guess, willing to pay a lot of money for blocks of wood that they believe?
Oh, so V and I have that conversation plenty. The idea of us becoming prosperity doctrine, sow your seed money, we're ex-atheist YouTubers. Don't think it hasn't crossed our minds, but the fact is we couldn't live with ourselves.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's got to be the person you see in the mirror, and you're ultimately going to be deciding whether or not you like that person. And I don't know. Could you?
No, I was thinking about that for a while, but yeah, you are correct. It's, again, how honest every individual wants to be.
Yeah, and
sorry, this is a very.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was saying I realize this is a very niche topic.
It really is.
So I'm almost embarrassed to call in.
That's okay.
Next time I'll talk about. Okay.
That's okay. That's a lot of fun, Allistair. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. No, I'll talk about spirituality next time. It's one thing I can't get out of my mind. But
okay, sounds
Absolutely.
good. We had another caller in last week who was worried about the call. You guys are doing great. We're not lying to you when we say that we enjoy these conversations and this is what we want to do. And the fact is, it's our damn show. And so when it comes to whether or not it's right for the show, we're the ones who get to decide it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
All right, let's take Mark in Virginia.
Okay.
Mark is calling in. He says his mom has anti-vaxxers living with her, and he wants advice on how to help. Mark, welcome to the show. That's an intense topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom, my sister-in-law and her husband are living at my mom's, and my father-in-law died, 10 years ago, and they're still living there. So my father-in-law kind of got my mom to promise that they would take care of each other.
Okay.
So she's not willing to kick them out, but they are not vaccinated. Fortunately, she has her vaccine and her booster. So, I don't know, maybe she's going to be all right, but she's also got heart problems, like AFib. So
she's vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a little afraid for her. I was planning on moving there. I got a job in that area, so I'm moving back.
Okay.
But then I also kind of I decided I wasn't willing to live there with them because they're anti-vax. So, So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at, and I just wanted to see what your advice would be.
Yeah, that's really rough. Is this a conversation? I'm assuming that this is a conversation you've had with your sister and brother-in-law in the past. This is something you've brought up and you haven't been able to get through to them?
Well, I haven't really talked to them all that much. My sister has spent some time trying to get through to them.
Okay.
And actually, I may have kind of burned my bridges on that because I decided not to move in, so.
Well, honestly, I don't know. So do they know why you decided not to move in?
Yeah.
Good.
They were kind of there.
Good.
They were kind of there when I said why. So,
yeah.
She was there. My sister-in-law was there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask because I get pretty fucking confrontive about this. But I think that if somebody is damaging their relationship with you because of their choices, the damage is being done. So at least they can know why it's happening. They can disagree with you, but if you're less likely to want to spend time with them, then they should know why. If I didn't like somebody's spouse and so I hung out with them less and they said, "Hey, Eric, how come you don't come over anymore?" I'm not a huge fan of your spouse. We can hang out elsewhere, but that's just not where I'm comfortable or where I'm happy. If we were talking about something much more serious, with them being anti-vaxxers, hey, I take this more seriously than you do. Obviously, you don't care about it as much as I do, and that is something that's really important to me. And your choice to do this has ostracized you from a relationship with me. If you'd like to have that relationship with me, you know what to do. If you don't want to, that is your choice. But I am putting the ball in your court. You can decide to or not to. But this is a boundary. Unfortunately, it sounds like your mother probably wouldn't be willing to do that. But ultimately, I think the more they recognize that their choices are impacting the people around them, that's a good thing. Don't protect them from the fact that what they're doing is driving you away.
Yeah.
But then again, I might just be absolutely destroying and torching your relationship. So that's where I need to put a disclaimer on that I'm an asshole on the internet. I'm not a therapist. And doing this has not worked out for me in the past. Sometimes it has, but not every time. So you're really taking your own risk on this. In fact, you should probably listen to V.
Just thinking out loud. Wait a minute. Maybe not.
That's what I do. But you do.
Here's what I would say, Mark, and this is something that a couple people have pointed out in the live chat as well. If the agreement was to take care of each other, and that's the reason your mom isn't kicking them out, then that should also be the reason that they get vaccinated, right? If they aren't being vaccinated and they're putting your mom at risk, they aren't taking care of her, so they aren't upholding their end of things. And that is something that you and your mom have every right to enforce. So you can say, hey, your agreement was to take care of each other. You are not doing that. So find a new place to live or do that, and then we will continue to take care of you and let you live here, right? There's a give and take there, and clearly they aren't upholding their end of things.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a great point, which I don't think...
You don't think you're going to do it. Mark, I know that sound of voice. I totally get that, but I am so not going to do that.
Here's the thing, though. And Mark, this is not to put undue pressure on you or make you do something you don't want to. These kinds of conversations need to happen. And the fact that we prioritize, not you, in general, I do this too. We prioritize being comfortable over having those difficult, necessary conversations is harmful to people who can benefit from those difficult conversations. So I'm definitely not suggesting that this is going to be an easy conversation if this is something you want to weigh in on. If you don't want to, then that's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But if you do want to address this, it's not going to be easy. And there are going to be hurt feelings across the board. And the hope is that the family tie will be strong enough to withstand it. But again, that's not a guarantee either.
Yeah. I mean, but I kind of want to balance that out because I don't want, Mark, I also don't want you to feel like this is something that is on your shoulders that you have to do either. It is not your other people doing those things is not your responsibility. You cannot own their choices. You cannot own the relationship they have with your mother. You cannot own the way that your mother talks to them. You can't own any of that. That's on them. And so if you decide to take any kind of action, it's because of you for yourself. But if you're needing to take ownership of the outcomes or any of that, you need to practice some self-compassion because that's not your responsibility. And more importantly, it's not within a sphere of influence that you have control over. And because of that, there's a helpless feeling that comes about that can be hurtful, when you want to see the world change, but you can't do anything about it. There's a sense of disempowerment, and it really sucks, and you don't deserve that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for your advice. I really appreciate it. I'm afraid though that if they're going to get it and actually kill her, so it's tough to know what to do. But yeah.
Oh, I wish there were a more easy solution, but we're sending you hugs.
This is an ongoing ethical nightmare that is just permeating everybody's lives in some way or another right now. And I'm sorry that you're going through that, and we really do hope that your mom remains okay. But thank you for calling in, and I hope this helped at least to bounce ideas off of us.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care, Mark.
And I love your show.
Oh, thank you. All right, bye.
I do too, actually. I like this show.
Yeah. It's okay. It's good.
We put a lot of work into it.
It's good. All right. I think we're actually probably going to move to Super Chats.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because we've only got like 7 minutes left. Jeremiah, we see you on the line. One thing that I do want to just say over just in general, moving into season 2, we really want to focus on how to address things skeptically, whether that's a belief or somebody whose beliefs you're interacting with, like some of the callers today. So regardless of topic, of course, if you can apply skepticism to it and you want to bounce that back and forth with us, that's what you want to call in about. There are conversations around things like gender and trans issues and reproductive rights and all of these things that we want to talk about, but this might not always be the correct show format for it. We want to make sure we're really honing in on that. This is about skepticism applied to beliefs whenever possible. And
I seriously, I get so frustrated when I see people not staying in their lane when it comes to what they're putting out there. Mm-hmm. And if somebody wants to talk to us about parenting, I'm like, I'm not a parent. I'm just going to pretend like I have any, like I'm not the right person. There are people who want to talk about, really, really intense scientific issues or medical issues. And I'm just like, if I'm going to be honest and stay in my lane, I really can't, it's not fair to you, and it puts me in a position where the only thing I'm doing is talking out of my butt, and I really don't want to do that.
So here's the deal: if it's a topic that you really want to get feedback on, you can drop it in a super chat, because we will always read them and respond at the end of the show. Or you can reach out to us via email at contactskepticgeneration@gmail.com. We do have a bit of a backlog, but we are working through it. And we will respond to you, especially if you have a question where one of us feels like we have an area of expertise.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive into super chats.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with Sally. You know what, actually? Since we're not going to be clipping this, I think there might be a problem with my mic. Can I speak into your mic?
Sure.
I would love to get feedback on whether or not that helps. Thank you. Okay, Sally Pickett sent $10 and says, love you both, wishing you a great year ahead. Thank you so much.
All right. RG, sent us $7.99. Great to hear us cheering. That was a lovely surprise. Excited that you're embarking on your second season. Thank you for being patient with us as we compiled that together. We really got such a kick out of listening to it, and it made our week. It made us all warm fuzzy.
It was an absolute, oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we were just like taking turns cheering, like, it was so good. It was so good. Mike, Eben?
I'm still clacky.
I'm still clicky? Okay, so it's not my mic. Maybe just my voice is just bad. Okay. Mike sent us 10 Canadian and says, you folks are the best. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Simply Haven sent us $50.
Wow.
Thank you. Looking forward to a new year of your kindly intellectual rigor. I like that. I'm working up the courage to call. Unfortunately, Discord is beyond my limited technological abilities. You and me both, Simply Haven. But yes, please do call in. We're never going to judge you. And even if you just say, hi, okay, bye, and then leave, we'll be happy to have talked with you.
Yeah, but if it helps, it might be easier just to download the Discord app on your phone and then follow the link and then use the Discord app. It's a whole lot more a lot more intuitive, so you might have better luck with that. Let's see. Moldred sent us $23 and says, my goal is to get people into a state of generalized agnosticism about everything. Hold opinions about everything, but be open to new information. Can I be slightly pedantic?
Sure.
I internally define agnostic as the idea that whatever the topic is unknowable. And I don't know. I feel like we can make some pretty strong statements about things that we define as true. And so that's probably not what Moldred means, but that's the kind of bullshit that V has to deal with every day because we live together.
Zenful Pariah, give us $5. Thank you. Thinking you know a thing and, quote, knowing you know a thing are indistinguishable feelings. That is, until you need to build something. And that's a Lawrence Krauss quote, apparently.
You know, that's why I don't like talking about knowledge. You know,
we could get, maybe that's our next verse is after consciousness. We could talk about knowledge and justified true belief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. These are great, because if you have suggestions for what you would like us to argue about, and for those of you who were not here at the beginning, can we throw that graphic up one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. This one or
yes.
This one? Okay, cool.
We are doing a new show on some Wednesdays, probably about once a month. This is a very tentative schedule to see who's enjoying it, who shows up. We're going to be arguing with each other in the same way we would argue with callers, and it will also be a call-in show, so you can call in and tell us if we're wrong or right.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. It's a new thing, and
yeah, we're giving it a shot, and ultimately we want to try and use anything raised by that show to go towards getting a producer and a production computer, so that we can not have to worry about getting the production done, but get everything situated away with somebody who's dedicated to it.
And who knows all the audio stuff, so that you never have to deal with audio issues again. Can't promise that. Never mind.
A lot of the time, it's us trying to do this while we're also doing the production, and that means that some things aren't able to get fixed or are very difficult to, keep your eye on the conversation and do tech things. So that's our goal. Anyway, Dante Verona sent us $20 and says, "It's season 2 of Skeptic Generation. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout."
Hell yeah. John Klein sent us $5 and says, "As Texans and Trekkies, Eric and V, I'd love to know what you think about Starbase in Boca Chica, and if you follow SpaceX. The nerd in me needs to know."
I have not been following SpaceX. I am so sorry. I might need to.
I haven't been following this particular project. I do have many thoughts about SpaceX, and the crux of them is that the only reason that it was interesting and a worthwhile pursuit to go to space in Star Trek was because the goal was to find I have so many problems with the association between, it's like Star Trek, but also hyper-capitalistic, hyper-segregated. Like, SpaceX is not the utopia that we want or that Star Trek portrays, and so going to space is a cool thing. Getting it this way with billionaires creating enough carbon emissions for like 20 years by launching a rocket, not the way to go. Lots of feels.
I don't have enough feels sorry. But I am really digging the live chat where people are talking about the difference between skepticism and epistemic nihilism. And I appreciate you. You are my people.
Yeah.
We're home. Amit sent $10 and said, "Season 2, let's go."
Woo! Sarah Dye also spent $10. Great show. Thanks for your amazing examples of great conversation.
We're trying our best. And hopefully next episode we'll have more conversation with less clicking.
Yes.
Let's see. Namax Lord sent $10 and says, "Love your show so much.
Yay.
Using your show to calm down after preventing my Instagram from getting hacked. Love you guys. Good luck." Oh, good luck.
Glad you were able to avert that.
Yeah.
And Lady AJ sent us $10 and says, "Losing my mind over religious exemptions. Can't get help. Can't get anyone to help, including FFRF so far, making me really angry at work. Any thoughts?" I know that American Atheists is a very blatantly anti-religious exemption. You might want to consider reaching out to them.
Also the Satanic Temple.
Yes. So American Atheists and Satanic Temple probably would be the two that I would go to first. FFRF tends to deal more in, like, not quite that kind of arena. So if you're looking for lawsuit help, those two would probably be the best ones to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People who have been hearing wind in the background, yes, that is wind.
Is super windy.
It is very cold and windy here in Texas, and I'm very happy about it.
It's exciting.
All right. So just as a reminder, we do have new merch. We have stuff for you to buy.
Yeah, and it's just below. You don't need to take a link. You can actually buy merch straight from this channel now. Yeah. We hit 10,000 subscribers, and that's something that we can do now. Stoked. V, you put so much work into that. Thank you.
Of course. It was a lot of fun. And the fun thing is that it has stuff on the back and the front now, because Teespring is better than Redbubble. There, I said it.
And, go ahead.
I also do want to remind everybody that we do have a podcast.
We do.
So
Our podcast is awesome. If you're listening to this as a podcast and you put up with the clipping, it's because I've put hours and hours and hours into trying to remove as much clipping as possible. Thank you so much for your patience. And if you are watching this now and expecting to listen to it as a podcast, just be prepared that I'm going to spend the next 10 hours, if I need to, removing as much clipping as possible to make it listenable as a podcast.
Absolutely. And the podcast does have updated audio every time. So if there's ever an episode that you really want to watch, but for some reason the audio that day is kind of wonky, the podcast is always a good version to listen to. But yeah, let's...
Should we tell them what we're about to do?
So the first season, we did not have an outro.
No, we did our best to come up with them, and it started getting kind of tired. We had fun with it, but we knew what we kind of wanted to be the outro, because the intro is, our tagline for the show is, we need to talk, because it's uncomfortable. It gets under your skin.
So this was actually a submission from a commenter, so shout out. But this is going to be our official outro for this show. Until next time.
We're glad we had this talk.